starting?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So this is fine. Should be able to see. All right. So this is just sort of repeating what we thought we heard yesterday in terms of the objectives of Repair the World, and that's the place that we wanted to start. So this is an illustrative graph, but the idea is that currently there's, out of the 6.2 million Jews in the United States, one of the goals is to get more Jews doing service, and then also to increase the prominence of service in what we're calling the Jewish identity share. So this idea that one of the values, your core values, or the bigger piece that you speak to when you say I am a Jew, directly relates to the obligation or the inspiration that you feel to do service. And so trying to increase both of these things, and we think that they sort of reinforce each other as well, inform the direction that we thought we should take in terms of Repair the World and the Fellows Program.
External factors that kind of brought us to what we're going to recommend to you is that as we said, a lot of Jews are doing service, they don't connect service with being Jewish. There's a dwindling population of traditional Jewish community programs, federation, institutional support is kind of dwindling everywhere but Baltimore and Detroit in a lot of areas, to be specific. Existing access, you see Hillel service centers in America are offered to college kids, and there's a lot of Moishe House involvement with the middle 22-25 demographic, but what we see is that youth organizations lack service opportunities. You have BBYO, for example, but not a lot of service attached to BBYO activities. And lastly, if you look at this in a theme, we're trying to create a fluidity between youth groups, college students, Moishe House, just kind of how do we kind of bring this fluidity between all age groups together?
So the one big thing that we talked about in terms of like what the opportunity might be is, as we started to parse out, as you described to us, what you thought were sort of the target service age range, we mapped out the number of Jews in America in each of those brackets, and then like the service opportunities that are currently available, whether or not they are specifically Jewish or there happen to be a lot of Jews that are playing a leadership or participating role in them. And the one thing that we realized was that currently in the target population that you guys are aimed at, there's a lot of stuff going on, and so adding one more program to the mix, whether you're trying to be an umbrella or a competing brand, would probably be a difficult thing. So if we go back to the original goals that we talked about, if part of the goal is to instill a value of service as part of being Jewish, and then use that value of service as something that makes people want to stay Jewish and claim their Jewish identity as they grow older, we thought that there was a big opportunity to actually move into the pre-college space. And we think that owning this space will offer two benefits. One, it'll fill a gap of service opportunities at a formative Jewish service opportunities at a formative identity stage. And two, oh, I'm sorry, it's hard to read here. It says it'll root Jewish identity in a service ethic at an earlier age.
Say that again.
It'll root Jewish identity in the ethic of service at an earlier age. So people will identify their being Jewish and having a value of service. They'll connect those things sooner than when they get to college.
So building off of what Gabe said, the recommendation is largely really to be more targeted in your audience and say that there's a lot of people acting in the college space, there's a lot of activity on the post-college space. We're going to intervene earlier, in part because people are at a formative stage, and largely because there's this what we see as a white space between people preparing for the bar mitzvah. There's a big event, and then there's not a lot of nationally organized connection to Judaism until you get to college, and all of a sudden there's Hillel. So our recommendation is that Repair the World should coordinate and brand the bar mitzvah service component and use that as a launching off point for teen service groups that build an ethic of service up until the college experience.
So with our limited time left, our basic idea is, you want me to do it? Okay, sorry. So we're going to have basically a regional coordinator, and it's going to be an umbrella down to college students that are going to lead youth groups in high school, building leaders from bar mitzvahs up through this pipeline of leadership that's devoted to service. So we're trying to increase the people you're trying to reach by getting them younger rather than pulling in people who are harder to get.
In the bar mitzvah specifically, I mean, everyone's having a bar mitzvah in the Jewish community. It's a mitzvah project is built into the curriculum already, and to partner with synagogues at that point and to really continue that pipeline is important.
Great.
by the,
Oh,
your assertion that there's already a lot in the college and post-college space and not much in the teen space is fascinating to me. And when I look at the research that I got from several funders and several other organizations and a lot of the survey work, now, I want to be really clear, I've been doing this for 3 weeks, so this could be a complete mind change.
we've been doing it for 3 hours, so.
Well, you're inside the demographic that I'm thinking about. My understanding is that there's literally orders of magnitude more work going on in the teens space. That when you look at the effort that the synagogues, the number of programs that they have, the kinds of service projects they put up, the number of participants that they have going, and then you look at the survey work, when you ask teens, how many times in the last year have you been asked to serve? Whereas when you look at young adults, those same kinds of questions, we were specifically thinking that the young professional adult is actually way, way underserved. Whereas right now in the teens they could be overserved. So I'm really interested. Now I also noted that so as a matter of personal privilege, I need to note that I see TFA and City Year as part of AmeriCorps, not separate from AmeriCorps. On your slide, but there were other organizations there that are literally reaching hundreds of people in a world where we have, hundreds of thousands to reach, right?
Can I make a quick comment? Another sort of undergirding assumption that we had in our thought process, at least one that made a lot of sense to me. I won't speak for everybody. But it seems like, so that it would have been great to have that data. We didn't. It may be true that there aren't enough Jewish-centric service opportunities in the college space. Service learning, as you know better than anybody, is something that's pervasive in college, and it's a pluralistically pervasive movement, which only says to me that I think it's an opportunity. I think the opportunity should be at that point for somebody to bring their inspiration to serve as a Jew to a broader service movement. It doesn't mean that they can't have individual Jewish opportunities, but college is also a very pluralistic atmosphere. Whereas if your goal, per our first slide, is to increase the overlap between I feel Jewish and I have a value of service, and those things are inherently tied to each other, then I mean maybe that also speaks to the success that's being had at the earlier age. And I think the opportunity that you would have, at least from our conversations, I understood it to be is that nobody brands and owns that in a way. So like if you could brand and own the Mitzvah Project and make it service oriented, and that's what Repair the World is about, then everybody who goes into this pluralistic atmosphere in college sees Repair the World and their Judaism as a source for their ongoing commitment to service, which is everywhere in college.
We want to go back to your mission and say, I serve because that's part of my Jewish identity.
And I think that the bar mitzvah age, when you're serving, you're seeing it as a synagogue-related activity, and it's more religious, being in a synagogue. I think that the shift we're trying to make is that you can see service as part of your Jewish identity outside of the synagogue. I think that the branding and a lot of this kind of work is meant to exactly get to that internalizing service.
It's like a long-term theory, right? We're building leaders. That's your mission.
Right. It's just a very So I've got 4 kids. 2 of them have been bar and bat mitzvah in the last 4 years. They all got probably 15 to 20 requests to join different nonprofit organizations for their bar mitzvah service project. As their dad, professional in the service world, I tried to recruit them to do stuff that I thought was really exciting, and they basically said no. So maybe part of my worry here is I can't even recruit my own kids because the space is so crowded.
Is that well coordinated?
Well, it's really interesting. It's almost all of it is highly community based, but basically all of the food pantries, the rescue shelters, the interfaith players, my daughter, one of my daughters rides horses, and I couldn't believe it, but one of the horseback center, riding center for people with physical and emotional disabilities contacted her, so please do your bat mitzvah project with us.
Equitherapy.
Wow, yeah, equitherapy, and so for me it feels, I experienced this both in DC and in Philly, and it might not be universal.
Yeah, that will.
Very, very interesting.